And talking about pleasing your customers, you did a pretty admirable job with the Tornado Oktoberfest.
Yeah. We've been doing our Oktoberfest. This is actually our 10th year doing it. And our Oktoberfest is a wonderful event that basically synthesizes everything about what we stand for into a 2-day experience. Wonderful beer, great food, fun activities, all of it raising money for a really good cause with killer bands on top of that. And that is, the core of Beau's essence. This year on Friday, there were 6 tornadoes that touched down within about 50 kilometers to 100 kilometers of our festival. And if you've ever been in an experience where your emergency management has been put to the test, you know that it's not a fun experience. But coming out of it, I have to say, the team performed phenomenally. We made sure to keep our guests safe, and we did a pretty good job of keeping them happy too. So the way the day unfolded, leading up to the festival, we always keep our eye on the weather, and it looked like there was going to be rain on Friday. I'm like, okay, well, we've had snow at Oktoberfest.
Oh, I've been there for that.
I know. We've had rain, we've had heat waves, we've kind of had everything. So we didn't get too concerned. And as it got closer, it looked like, looks like there's going to be a significant amount of rain that's going to hit. The day of, they changed the forecast to say, well, there might be lightning. And I'm like, okay, so...
Now you have a lot of tents there, right?
We do have a lot of tents, so we had to, connect with our tent supplier and find out if the tents are safe in a lightning storm. No, they're not. So we identified all the structures where we could move people to that were safe, and we started calling. There's a meteorologist from federal government you can contact. It's a paid for service, and we're getting in touch with them, and they're giving us their expectations, and their expectations were there was going to be a short period of lightning between 6:30 and 7:30, and we were like, okay, we can deal with that. Called him again the next hour, same update. I was literally on the float on the parade on the way to Oktoberfest. My phone starts ringing.
So you're wearing lederhosen.
I'm fully done up in my lederhosen, and my phone's ringing, and it's the meteorologist. I'm like, oh, this is weird. I picked up the phone because it's the meteorologist, and the meteorologist says, I may have misspoken. There's been some tornadic activity.
Tornadic activity?
Tornadic activity.
I had never heard that term before. I can guess
Neither
what it means.
had I. Yeah. And I didn't have to ask what that meant. I just knew things had just changed for us. And so we got to the fairgrounds. The meteorologist was still saying the risk for our area was extremely low, but we needed to be prepared.
Yeah, of course.
And when we got there, then things started changing very quickly on us. We had police coming in with reports that tornadoes were right in the area.
Right.
And suddenly things changed. So we had to move everybody on site into the structures we'd identified. And
these were the safer of the structures that were on the
That's right. Yeah. So not tents. You didn't have to worry about lightning hitting them, and there was at least a roof and walls on this side. And so we moved everybody there. We had to stop allowing people in, which was unfortunate, but all of our structures were getting filled at that point, and we didn't feel safe. Once we made sure everyone was safe, our next priority was let's make sure everyone's got a beer in their hand, because otherwise we're going to have unhappy people.
Always good plan. Okay.
Then once they had a beer in their hand, we made sure they had food. And then once we made sure they had food, we made sure they had entertainment.
I guess you had a whole lot of vendors and bands on site, right? So
that's right. So we started going to our restaurant partners and asking them which ones had food that they could move into the structures. We started talking to the bands, and it was a really kind of wonderful thing where people just started coming to us saying, hey, we can do this. We had Taggart and Torrens doing the hosting for the night, and they came to us and they're like, can we just go into one of the buildings and start doing some impromptu stuff with them? It'll keep people happy.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And so for people that were actually in these buildings on site, I think they had a wonderful experience, as scary as it was. And it could have just been an absolute, just miserable time.
Yep.
But instead, once we made sure people were safe, we really took the time to try to make sure people were happy. And then once we were doing that, some of the other bands were coming to us, and like the Flatliners were supposed to play the main stage that night.
Yeah.
We're bunkered down in the buildings with the rest of us, and they kind of came up to us and said, hey, once the storm passes, can we still play? And we checked with the sound company, and just the risk of operating that large stage. I don't know if you recall, but at Blues Fest a few years ago, a stage collapsed and people got killed. So the risk was way too high, even after the storm was done, to do anything with the main stage. But the Flatliners and some of the other bands were so adamant that we're like, what about the small stage? So they hopped up on the small stage, and for the people that
so you got
there,
about 1,000 people who are still left.
Yeah, 1,000 people got to see this really cool, intimate show. And, we made the best of a really crappy situation. We, let everyone who had Friday tickets come in for free on Saturday. And Saturday, typically, that's the day that sells out first, and it's kind of like, the bigger day of the two. People that couldn't make that, we were allowing them to come back next year. We really did everything we could to try to make things right for people. And, the feedback we've gotten has been incredibly heartwarming. People are thankful that we didn't put them at risk, and that we did our best to kind of make sure that people had an okay time when they were there. So it was something I hope we never have to go through again. But watching how the whole team came together, and we just have these great examples of. One of our drivers in Ottawa, Corey, I've just got this mental image of him on top of this Kubota dishing beers out to the crowd and this just massive way while Tanya, our CFO, is selling tokens at the front of the thing. And, seeing the way that our team rallied around keeping people safe but then making them happy was really, really impressive. And I remember my cousin Mike Beauchesne, who's part of the company, getting the sort of the radio feed at something like 9 o'clock at night. Mike's really drenched. He's been at the front gates this whole time. I'm like, oh, you poor man. I had no idea. And Mike literally sat there throughout what could have been an entire tornado in the pouring rain, trying to keep the messaging at the front lines consistent. And it wasn't until 9 o'clock where he's like, is it okay if I come back in out of the storm? And just so many examples of how our team just pulled together and made things right for people was really, really awesome.
Well, I think it's a perfect example of Beau's customer support there. Fantastic.
We really, really care about our customers, and out of the whole thing, nothing makes me feel worse than the people that got on a bus, didn't get to get off the bus at Oktoberfest. And that is the kind of thing that the week after Oktoberfest, first thing we're talking about is how do we make sure that never happens again. And those were sort of the things where in the moment you do the best you can, but afterwards you're like, there's nothing worse than someone that had an expectation of an excellent experience with us and we let them down. So that is so core to who we are that it's really, really disappointing when we let people down. Even when it's not our fault because a tornado hit.